G'day everybody, Matt Ellis with you for the latest edition of the Cricket Library podcast, and today we have a very special treat for you. The Alister McDermott story. From growing up on the Gold Coast to getting his first Queensland contract while he was still at school, he would go on to play in a winning Australian World Cup under-19 team, a Big Bash Championship winning team, a one-day domestic winning team, and taking 6 wickets to lead Queensland to victory in a Sheffield Shield final.
Good movement both ways to McDermott. And there you go. Straight through. 6 wickets for Alister McDermott.
Alister shares with us the highs and the lows of playing professional cricket, his transition out of the game playing professionally and moving into studying teaching, as well as his work now as a coach at the Alister McDermott Cricket Academy and Wynnum Manly Cricket Club. It's time to sit back, relax and enjoy the Alister McDermott story on the Cricket Library podcast. And it's a very warm welcome to the Cricket Library podcast. Alister McDermott, thanks so much for joining us.
No dramas, Matt. Thank you very much for having me on. Very much enjoying to have a bit of a chat.
Yeah, we've had a few Queenslanders on recently, Nathan Reardon and Luke Feldman in recent times, and great to have you on as well. A Sheffield Shield winner, a Big Bash winner, a domestic one-day winner. But what we like to start with on the program is to find out a little bit about where your passion for cricket started. So, can you take us back to your early memories of loving the game?
Yeah, perfect. Love to. It's actually I grew up on the Gold Coast. I played for the Mudgeeraba District Cricket Club. I was obviously starting in the juniors down there on the sort of southern Gold Coast region. I played there for a number of years, and from there, sort of obviously just sort of loved the game, fell in love with it, and I really started to enjoy it and progressed sort of through there playing through a little different sort of higher age groups and different sort of South Coast regional sort of teams.
Yep.
And I played a lot of different sports as well growing up. Cricket definitely wasn't my only sport. I played soccer, I did swimming, a bit of tennis, surf life saving. So I think that was probably what held me in sort of some pretty good settings. And I just fell in love with playing sport. And then eventually once I got a little bit older, probably in sort of my early teens, certain sports started to drop off. I didn't do swimming.
Yep.
I think one of my last swimming sessions, I think I came back from a holiday, actually, and I went to a swimming lesson. I pretty much cried the majority of the time just because I did not enjoy it at all. And that from that session on, I never went back to swimming. And then I played soccer up until about sort of year 9. Surf life saving, I stopped a little bit beforehand, and I didn't really choose cricket for obviously with my dad playing it all. I just kept playing because I enjoyed it, and that's sort of something I try and sort of preach to kids that I coach today. Play a variety of sports and make sure you enjoy what you're doing, because there's a lot of hard work to be committed, to be motivated to play sport. So if you aren't enjoying it, then probably don't play. But if you are enjoying it, then that's the most important thing.
Absolutely. Now, you've got a younger brother who's a very talented batter. One of the things I've found interesting is that you're the older brother and you were predominantly a bowler. I was thinking of say a Brett Lee, for instance. He was the younger brother, probably bowling for hours on end to Shane. You're the other way around. Do you have many memories of playing with your younger brother?
Yeah, we played a fair bit of backyard cricket as sort of what you do when you're growing up. I do sort of have a distinct memory sort of when we're growing up on the coast. In holidays we'd sort of set up on the driveway, hitting across down the driveway, across sort of the road, and even then into sort of a bit of a park across the road. And we would set ourselves up as certain teams. We'd write down our batting order of each, and we always sort of picked the current Queensland team.
Yeah.
And then we going through the teams back then, you'd have Matthew Hayden, Caswich, Bickle, all those type of heroes that we sort of grew up passionately watching. And you got to get 10 wickets and then you might get your chance to have a bat. So as you can tell, obviously there was a lot of batting done by Ben and a lot of bowling done by me.
Now, do you remember much about your progression into men's grade cricket? What are your recollections of that as a teenager trying to kind of break into men's first grade cricket?
Yeah, I was playing for the Gold Coast Dolphins at that time, and I remember I got picked in the Taverners squad, which back then I think it was a little bit younger than it is these days up here in I guess the Brisbane sort of competition. And I was playing in that, and then sort of the year after that, I sort of progressed into the senior grade competition. And I started off playing third grade. But what I sort of used to do from memory is I used to play a little bit of local cricket in the morning, just Surf Paradise.
Yep.
And then I used to also then progress to then go and play, I guess, the third grade games in the afternoon. And then I think I spent about 3/4 of that year in third grade.
Yep.
And then I went into second grade, sort of finished off in second grade that year. Then the following year, I started off in second grade, and I progressed by the end of that, sort of the middle of that year. I was playing second grade.
Yeah, and
in second grade, then by the middle of that year, sort of I progressed into sort of first grade. Sorry.
And how long were you playing regular first grade cricket before you get that call up to play T20 cricket back? In the pre-Big Bash days, you make your debut for Queensland against Victoria. How much first grade experience did you have under your belt before you're thrown into the big time?
To be honest, not much. It's looking back now. I was very, very, obviously very, very lucky and fortunate to get a contract in year 12. And then on the back of, to be honest, I didn't play much first grade cricket at all. I had played a couple of games.
Yep.
It would have only been sort of 2 or 3 first grade games, and I got a contract. But I think what they sort of probably liked is that the last sort of few games in second grade of one season, I got a fifer in the last round game, a fifer in the semi, and then a fifer in the final.
Yeah. Yep.
So I think that might have held in good stead. But as I sort of think about it, have sort of thought about it, I was only playing second grade. There's still a big step up to first grade, then another big step to second 11 cricket, then into obviously the men's Bulls team. But yeah, I was very fortunate enough to get the contract in year 12. We were to play that T20 competition. I was actually on the under-19 tour with the Queensland. It was just a national competition. And Chris Lynn was on that tour, and I remember I got a call on my phone came up, it was our chairman of selectors back then, and I went and I answered the call, and they're saying, we've picked you for the upcoming T20 competition, and back then it was the state competitions. The Big Bash hadn't started up then, and I generally thought he was sort of taking the mickey, and he was just having a bit of having a laugh, to be honest, because I was not on my radar at all. I hadn't played a lot of T20 cricket at all, to be honest. And I was currently just at an under-19 competition, and I very much thought I was definitely a couple of years at least away from getting an opportunity, and I had a lot of work to do to show that I probably deserved it.
Yeah.
So I probably got that opportunity. I believe I definitely hadn't had performances on the board, let's say that, to warrant the selection.
Yeah.
But all they said to me, your role is come in and we just want you to hit Yorkers. You're good at executing Yorkers.
Yeah.
So just come in and bowl Yorkers. And pretty much that's what I did the whole year. I barely bowled any other balls apart from a Yorker but for a whole season. So it worked out pretty well. I had not too bad of a season in the T20s. and sort of then it just slowly progressed from there for me.
Yeah, and you get your one-day debut, your domestic one-day debut against WA. Do you recall your first wicket against bowling to Marcus North? I think it was one where there was it was sort of half appeal for LBW, half appeal for caught behind, and I think you looked a bit shocked that it was given out from memory.
Yeah, it was one of those ones as a bowler you go, oh, that might be out, that might not be. It was sort of a half appeal, half of just sort of going, oh, something might have happened. And I sort of just followed through, and then I sort of turned around, and the umpire's got his finger up. Because it was definitely no real appeal for me at all.
Yeah.
And I've seen replays before, and there's definitely that sort of shocked look on my face, that's for sure. And I remember the replays of watching the delivery as well. I don't know sort of what the umpire heard or even saw, because pardon me, there was definitely some clear daylight between bat and pad. I don't think the ball hit anything, to be honest.
Marcus North, not a bad one to get for wicket number one, though.
Yeah, exactly right. I remember I was so nervous that day. It was probably quite fortunate. It was a bit of a green top.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of something in for the bowlers, and being at the whacker, there's always that bit of pace and bounce as well. So I was pretty fortunate to have a bowler-friendly wicket. We didn't perform the best. I know from memory we didn't get too many runs on the board, and I think we had to come out and defend.
Yeah.
Defend the low total. I actually can't remember even if we won the game. But it was a great experience, and it's sort of those sort of moments you sort of go back and you watch, and you get all these sort of little bits of memories of pieces of during that game. And those moments sort of, you get your first wicket, and it is obviously Marcus North, who went on to have a very nice career for Australia.
Yeah, and just for the record, WA won by 2 wickets with 3 balls remaining. You had them eight down, chasing 161. So
right, it was that close then. Okay.
Yeah, Brett Dorey and Brad Knowles in at the end for WA to get him across the line.
Yeah.
So
okay, big two-story Dorey. He was a good bowler.
Yeah, he picked up wickets in that game as well, I think.
Yeah.
Now, first class debut, red ball cricket. So you sort of you've come into the Queensland setup in the squad. You've played some T20 cricket, some 50 over cricket. Tell us about the call up to play against the West Indies for your first class debut and your recollections of that.
Yeah, so it was in the middle of the season, and obviously they were generally back then what they don't really do it too much these days. But what they do, I think it was more so because of the timing of schedules, but back then, generally, whatever country is touring would play a couple of games against some states in between sort of the current sort of Shield schedules, just to warm them up for obviously the tour that the test they're going to play against Australia. So what happened was I got the call up, I think probably more so because it was in between some Shield games, so they wanted to rest a couple of bowlers, but also sort of have a look at some different bowlers as well. So myself and Luke Feldman, we both debuted that game, and Luke Feldman had an outstanding game. He bowled the house down, and he deserved that call up the game after to keep going on and playing some first class cricket, some 4-day cricket for Queensland. And obviously we know what sort of career he had. He was been an absolute stalwart for Queensland over the years.
Yeah, absolutely.
But for me, it was a great experience. Got my baggy maroon hat presented by Joey Dawes. He was a bowling coach for years and years around Queensland, and obviously an exceptional bowler in his own right as well. But for me, I had a good connection with him because he knew me from quite a young age and helped me come up through sort of the pathway system at Queensland cricket. And it was a special moment for me to get my hat from him. And it was just a great experience playing the game because I hadn't played any long form cricket apart from sort of 2-day cricket, the Saturday stuff, in club cricket, to be honest, before that. And you're running in and bowling to Shivran Chanderpaul with his chest facing you, when I'm thinking he's trying to face up to someone at square legs. So it was a very good experience, and I learned a lot about myself, and I guess how much more work I had to do to make sure that I was ready to play consistent first class cricket.
And you bowl first in that game. You're taking the new ball and a wicket. I think with your ninth ball, Travis Dowland bowled. Did that help calm the nerves, getting an early breakthrough?
Yeah, I think it definitely does. No matter whether if you get a wicket or if you, I guess, on your debut or in a big game, if you can get a good couple of overs under the belt where you're landing the ball where you want to, there might be a bit of swing. I guess you can just relax and get yourself into the game.
Yep.
But to get a wicket was amazing, to be honest. And one that you're always going to remember that for sure. And since I guess in the last few years, I've sort of gone back onto the cricket system where we hold all our footage, and I've sort of have downloaded heaps of sort of games and which I can remember where I performed well, and so I can look back on in sort of years to come and just go through those moments and memories that were really, really nice to be able to sort of look back on.
Oh, for sure. And speaking of nice moments, you're a World Cup winner, under 19s World Cup. Mitch Marsh is your captain. I think Joshy Hazlewood and maybe Kane Richardson, the other players that have gone on to play international cricket, certainly. What are your recollections of winning the World Cup with that group of players for Australia?
Yeah, it was amazing, to be honest. We had some pretty good celebrations, that's for sure. We didn't sleep until we got on the plane.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, I guess a fun little fact about that under-19 team and even the entire squad, everyone in that entire squad, apart from maybe one, actually no, everyone did, went on to play some form of cricket, whether that be for their states, or whether that be first class cricket or T20 cricket or one day cricket.
Wow.
Which I think that's a pretty good achievement for all of those guys. But I think we've had a lot of guys progress through that team and play even international cricket. As you said, there was Kane Richardson, Adam Zampa.
Oh, Zamps, yeah.
Hazlewood, Marsh. So there was a lot of seriously good players who've gone on and are still playing today and performing well for Australia. And it was an amazing game because I think we were sort of a little bit behind the eight ball when we started sort of bowling.
Yep.
But to be honest, Josh Hazlewood won it with the ball for us. He just bowled outstandingly. He was lucky he had down the breeze, so he was able to bowl some decent wheels, and Mitch Marsh just goes, "Here, mate, have the ball. You can run into the breeze all day for you." So.
Thanks, Mitch.
Yeah, exactly. It's I don't think I bowled too well that game, but it had those tough ends. But I was always happy to play that role up into the breeze. I think I always bowl my best into the breeze. I think that's probably one thing that suited me and helped me, I guess, have an early career in cricket, is because I was always happy to have those sort of tough ends or tough overs, whether that was into the breeze or whatever it might be, because I think a lot of bowlers get caught up in always trying to bowl down breeze and try and bowl fast, when sometimes that can actually work against you.
Yeah, and you relied on your outswinger a lot early on. Was that your kind of go-to ball even back then?
Yeah, 100%. That's really was my main focus. I had a big focus on is just staying boring in that sense of always being around that sort of off stump line and just trying to swing the ball. I think I always had a sort of a nice wrist position, good seam presentation when I bowled. So I was always able to swing the ball. I always just gave myself the best opportunity to swing the ball, and I didn't really have too much else up the sleeve. To be honest, didn't really have many off cutters. Relied on hitting the seam to seam it. Yeah. It wasn't until sort of 4 years later that I was tried to bowl some more in swingers or try to have a few more variations. That's for sure.
Now, Sheffield Shield cricket, you get your chance to play some Shield cricket for Queensland, and the season to remember, 2011-12. We'll get to the Shield final in a minute, but there was a game at the back end of the regular season. I think Queensland was undefeated at this point in time, and you're playing against WA. WA sneak home by 1 wicket, chasing about 70, I think, in the second innings. And
I think it was 52.
Oh wow,
52 from memory. Yeah.
And you rip through you rip through their top order and take career best first class figures, 10 overs, 7 for 24. Have you ever felt better bowling than that day?
Probably not, to be honest. It'd be one would be close to being in that final later in, I think it was later in that year.
Yeah, yep.
But there was one of those days where you're just running and everything's just smooth, clicking, and where you want to bowl it, what you want to do with the ball, it just happens. And you have a lot of other days where you're running and bowling, you're trying to do what you want to do, and it's just going left or right, and you just can't seem to do what you want. But yeah, it was one of those days that everything clicked for me, and everything. Any time the batter sort of missed it, it was getting an edge, and it was getting taken apart from like Ryan Broad dropped the catch at first or second slip, and then also a hat trick ball didn't get given out off Nathan Remington down leg.
Oh.
So it would have been nice to have.
So did you strangle him down the leg side?
Yeah, it was just sort of wrapped in. It was a little bit short and sort of around that rib cage area, and he went to sort of just flick it off his body, and it just got a glove. And the umpire just said, "No, not out," and obviously didn't hear anything. But I had played a lot with Nathan Remington before he went over to Perth, and whether he was trying to wind me up or not, get under my skin, but he said he definitely hit it.
Oh, gee.
That's all right. It was a great game, and it was probably a game that we definitely didn't deserve to win because we didn't bat well in the first innings. Hence, if a team's only chasing 52 in the second innings, your team probably hasn't batted that well, and you probably might not have bowled the best either in your first innings. So I think we probably made it a closer game than probably what it should have been, to be honest.
And a fellow Queenslander, 16 not out at the end and not walking on a hat-trick ball, Nathan Remington. Goodness
it would have been
me.
nice if it was Adam Gilchrist. He would have walked.
Oh, gee. And now that year, we talk about that Sheffield Shield final that year. I had Chris Hartley on last year, and we were talking about this Shield final. What a phenomenal game of cricket it was. Queensland playing against Tasmania and winning by 3 wickets in the end. It was 100 from Chris Hartley in your first innings that set it up. But before all that happened, you take a big bag, 6 for 54, including the great RT Ponting in a Shield final. How good are you going there?
Yeah, it was. I think I was just in a really nice stage and a mental state with my cricket, and I guess that in a purple patch is sort of what people call it.
Yeah.
And everything got sort of what I wanted to do was just sort of happening. And I think what was a good moment, and one I'll always sort of look back on and be pretty proud of. There was a stage of the game where Tassie were going pretty comfortably. They were only sort of 1 or 2 down for about 100 odd. And then I think I came on in one spell, sort of took 3 for 5 or 3 for 6 off sort of 6 overs. And I think that's sort of what sort of helped sort of turn the game, and sort of slowly when we were able to sort of capitalise, we finished them off relatively quick, and then Hearts and batted exceptionally well. And I think James Hope's got a quick fire. I think it might have been 30 or 40 in that first innings.
I think he got 50. He got 50.
Got 50, okay.
Yeah, 58 in that first innings.
Yeah. And I think that's sort of what really just sort of kept the momentum on our side throughout the game. But again, it was, what will be, as I sort of said previously, it will be sort of one of those fond memories where we look back on, and it was an amazing game. And I wish I've been able to sort of playing a lot more finals. But it was a great experience, and it was a great bunch of blokes, and you look back on and you see different sort of clips and memories of it, and it always sort of brings a bit of a spine tingling sort of feel to it, because you're able to sort of be part of a Sheffield Shield history because it's such a prestigious trophy,
Yeah.
and it's just great to be able to sort of help Queensland lift the trophy again.
Oh, absolutely. And I need to ask you, Queensland are 7 down. AC McDermott sitting with the pads on. How are you feeling? Are you thinking, come on, Hearts and Steve McGoffin, let's just get this done? I don't want to be the hero here.
Oh, exactly. Any person in that moment that says, "Look, I'm fine. I wasn't nervous. I want to go out there," is completely lying to you. It's fine. I was sitting majority of the time underneath in the dressing room watching it on the TV, just pacing around, extremely nervous, probably going to the toilet every second over because I was that nervous.
Yeah.
And then once I think got down to sort of near the single digits, I came out and hopped up with everyone else because I was sort of thinking, if there's next wicket, I've got to put all my batting gear on.
Yeah.
But I was very lucky that obviously I didn't have to do that. So I don't know if it was 4 or 5 to in, I'm not sure if my nerves would have held out, that's for sure. But, Hearts and Steve McGoffin, they did an exceptional job, and they were just able to ride the momentum and the nerves I'm sure that they had, and just control their emotions and get the job done. They did a tremendous job, did their role for us, and I think that'll be one thing that they'll be able to look back on and be extremely proud of. It was what they'll be able to achieve.
Oh, absolutely incredible to do that in a Shield final, standing up when it mattered, and a great piece of Queensland cricket history, that one. And another one that we've talked about with a couple of other guests, we've talked about this one with Ryan Harris and Nathan Reardon. I sort of highlighted this one. He won 3 domestic one-day titles with Queensland, and he put this one top of the pile. The 2012-13 Ryobi Cup final at the MCG. It's a rain-affected game. You guys make 146 from your overs, and then a revised target, I think it might have been for Victoria. They were pretty well coasting. You pick up 3 wickets in this game as well. You knock over Hanscom, Sheridan, and I think who else you got there? Maybe Michael Hill.
Yep.
What are your reflections of this one? Was this another great escape by Queensland?
You probably could put it that way. It was definitely a game where there was a lot of things where you always sort of think about just control what you can control. There was a lot of things that were just affecting the things that you can control, I guess, because there was all the weather around. The totals were changing.
Yep.
The ground was wet. The ball was wet. So there was a lot of things that you just had to just try and not let affect your emotions or not affect your, I guess, your mental sort of state on how you want to, on what you're trying to do. At the end of the day, everything else can be going pear-shaped. But if you're not running in and doing your job, no one's going to care about that. You got to actually run in and be able to still do your job as a bowler and put the ball where you need to. And there was a stage towards the end there, I probably sort of let that sort of get to me, and I wasn't able to. The crease was a bit wet. Definitely not an excuse at all. But I was sort of struggling, and I didn't really sort of finish off my spell that day to how I would have liked. But one man that did was Ryan Harris. He bowled superbly. He probably won us the game with the ball.
Yeah,
that's for sure, because he bowled absolutely outstandingly. Finished the game off for us extremely well. And then with the bat was probably Jason Flores, who had an outstanding game. I think he might have whacked 40 or 50 from memory.
Yeah, 47 off 32. Jason Flores. Yeah, at a critical time.
And it was because I think the weather was around then, and we knew we only had a certain amount of overs to bat, and he everything just clicked for him. And if it probably wasn't for him, we wouldn't have had a total to at least try and defend. So he had an exceptional game as well. And I think that's the key in finals. There's always little moments where the game can be sort of won or lost.
Yeah.
Even though it's either 50-over game or 4-day game or a 2020, there's always little key moments that I think a result comes down to. And the longer you can stick to your game plan and back yourself, I think more often than not you will come out on top in those key moments.
Yeah, absolutely. And another really good one for you playing the Big Bash. You played that early cricket with Queensland before it was known as the Big Bash, and the Brisbane Heat have a wonderful season in BBL02. Nathan Horrocks, former guest on the show as well, man of the match in this game. You pick up some wickets as well, some key ones. Your future captain at the Sydney Thunder, Mike Hussey, and Bradley Hogg. Can you tell us at the time what winning a Big Bash title meant to yourself and the whole Brisbane Heat group?
Yeah, it's a good question because I guess in that moment the format, or not necessarily maybe I guess the format was so new to Australia. It hadn't been sort of really, I guess, taken in by maybe the public as well as it did sort of a couple of years after.
Yep.
So it was really for us, it was a new experience, I guess, for the first couple of seasons in the BBL, and we that first BBL season we really weren't too sure how if the public were really going to probably take it on board. And I guess we know what's happened since. It's been an amazing product, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But it was an exceptional game, and I know, as you sort of said, Horry, he got man of the match. But I do remember sort of one moment during that game in the first couple of overs, it was a right hand left hand combination batting, and I was out at deep square for the right hander, and then the left hander came in, so I came into point, and the ball came at me 2 balls in a row and nearly spun past me.
Oh,
and
wow.
I think it was between the overs. Horry comes up to me and goes, "Mate, you're never going to go backward point to me again." I was like, "Yeah, that's fair enough. I've never really fielded there ever before. Just put me on the boundary or put me somewhere straight in the field, and I'll be more than happy. That's for
sure." And you had Kemar Roach as your overseas. And I think you would have played against him in that first game you played for Queensland. Lightning fast with the ball. How good was it for you as a young guy to hang around someone like a Kemar Roach in this Big Bash tournament?
Yeah, it was amazing. And I think that's a great asset to the BBL, is being able to get all those internationals in. As much as it is probably a draw card for spectators, for us as players, it's an amazing experience because we get to learn from, they're obviously the best T20 players in the world. That's why they're coming, and that's why franchises are signing them.
Yeah.
But Kemar, he was amazing. You know, you were able to talk to him about cricket, you know, his upbringing as well, and how he came into cricket. And I guess you don't necessarily always talk so much about, I guess, how he bowls or anything like that. You just learn their journey, and you learn the different style of cricket that they play, and how they, I guess, everything they go about their sort of training as well. And I think that's where us as players, you can learn a lot, because if you've sort of only ever grown up and been in Australia, then you sort of only know that one way. If you can get exposed to different players and how they learn, how they train, or how they've learned to play the game and their upbringing, I think it gives you a new perspective on yourself and how you can obviously then improve your game as well. And even though those first few years in the Heat, you know, we had Brandon McCullum, there was Shane Watson, Mitch Johnson, Dan Vittori as well, Tastara Pereira, Rulof Vandermeer. So there was some really, really good T20 players that we were able to expose ourselves to and learn on.
And was it nice for you having your brother in the Brisbane Heat squad as well? What did it mean to you to have a Ben around for a little while there while you were at the Heat as well?
It was amazing. To be honest, that's probably one disappointing thing for me personally that I wasn't able to achieve, was to play a game with him. Obviously, we played a lot of club cricket and everything together, but we were never able to walk out and represent, a franchise or our state together. To be honest, if I could have one game, that only one more game, whether it would be, a franchise or representing our state, and if I could play with him, I definitely would do anything for that to happen. That's for sure. But it was great. I was 12th man for a couple of games that he played. I think he headbutted one off Sean Tate at Adelaide Oval to mid off in one of his very first games for the Heat. He's got a big melon, so he was lucky he was able to take that.
Oh, classic. And players at the Thunder as well. We were talking about some of the overseas players. You have 2 years at the Thunder. You're in the squad the year they win BBL 05. The likes of Jacques Callis, Andre Russell. What was it like being around those guys? Similar to what you said with the likes of Vittori and McCullum, etc.
Yeah, it definitely was. I was probably a little bit more taken back by them, purely probably because of the I guess of the stature of players they were.
Yeah.
With being that Jacques Callis probably the best, or for me anyway, the best all-round Test player, and one-day player probably the world's ever had. And then you've got Shane Watson, Andre Russell was in the early stages of his career, and then obviously Mike Hussey towards the back end, and he was someone that definitely sort of idolised in the way his passion for the game. Obviously called Mr. Cricket for a reason. He just loved the game, and he always just possessed and just represented that. He always showed that he wanted to do everything that he could to win.
Yep.
And probably more so too that those sort of 2 years I was probably on the back of not having a good year and a half or so up in Queensland.
Yep.
So I was probably a little bit not as sort of confident in my own ability. So to sort of be around them and see how they went about it, bowling to them and just knowing and being able to perform in the net and in some trial games that, I've still got that ability to play at this level. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to play a game for them, but it was still a massive learning curve for me personally, for my cricket, and then also I guess for my own personal development as a person off the field as well.
Yeah. The culture there at the Thunder under Paddy Upton looked from the outside in as a real opportunity to learn for anyone in that group at the time.
Yeah, spot on. You got it exactly right. That was what Paddy was massive on. Obviously, he's a coach, but he was big on, there's so much knowledge in the room as players. Try and learn off each other and harness that.
Yep.
And talk amongst each other how you go about things. What do you think of doing? What do you think of this? Or can you help me with this? Or how do you bowl this ball? Or how do you face this bowler? The more you talk, that we talk as a group, I think the stronger connection all players got.
Yeah.
And also, the more you learnt and developed your own game at the same time. It's all well and good play. Coaches probably, saying you should do this or you should do that. Players at that level are still going to listen. But, if you're talking currently to a player who's, you're going out into battle with and you're experiencing similar things, or at least you can relate. Sometimes it might be a little bit hard as a coach potentially to relate to scenarios or feelings that players are going through. So if you can find players that are doing the same, well, you might be able to learn off each other as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And just want to backtrack a little bit. You get a chance to tour with Australia A in 2012 on the back of that strong Shield season you have, and you knock over Ben Stokes a couple of times over there, actually, from looking through the stats. So you get wickets there on the Australia A tour, and then you get the call up to join the Australian squad in the UAE. What was going through your mind then to see yourself pretty close to the Australian setup?
It was it was an amazing, probably I would say a 2 years from coming up through Queensland system, playing a lot of one day cricket, T20 cricket, and first class cricket, and getting picked on that tour, and getting picked on the Aussie A tour. And there was, I think there was 4 or 5 games. I only played one, but I think that was in Durham. And then to get picked on that Dubai tour, that was an amazing experience. And if I had my time again, I probably wouldn't. I guess getting on an Aussie tour as a 21-year-old, I was pretty shy. I probably didn't open up as much, and that's probably just me as my personality. But I probably would have liked to try and learn more off all the players, and probably be a bit more sort of proactive in that, and also be a bit more vocal at times. But it's easy probably in hindsight to say that. But when you've got Mike Hussey, Michael Clark, those type of players around there, Shane Watson, Mitch Johnson, Mitchell Stark was at the early part, I think, of his career.
Yeah.
Then it's probably quite hard to sort of try and be that type of person, and that definitely wasn't for me. But again, that a month in Dubai with those guys for the one days and T20s was an amazing experience, and something I definitely sort of look back on. And something that probably from that moment I probably could have learned probably more from that tour. Probably could have trained a little bit harder and pushed myself more to make sure that I got another opportunity. But unfortunately, never probably gave myself that opportunity again.
And I was going to say, within a couple of years of that, you find yourself out of the Queensland squad. Can you tell us, like, just from an identity piece, you grow up playing cricket, you fulfill the dream of putting on the baggy maroon cap, you win some titles. Cricket is a lot of who you are. To have that time out of the Queensland squad, what learning do you have looking back on it now from that experience?
Yeah, it's a good one. It was probably took me a good, I think, a year to maybe even 2 years to fully understand and get my head around, I guess, what happened, maybe why, and also just sort of understand and look back on what I probably could have done better as well.
Yeah.
As I sort of touched on, I don't think I changed the way I trained or trained less. I probably kept doing the same. And I think as a professional athlete, you just can't keep doing the same thing, because players are constantly improving, constantly trying to be better. And that's probably something that I could have been a lot more proactive about, is just improving myself as a bowler. But dealing with the delisting, that was tough, because that was also at the same time that I was being at the Thunder. So I think that possibly sort of helped me to know that I was still good enough, but I was still probably dealing with why. I probably took me a good 18 months to sort of understand why I was delisted. And I never been sort of too vocal on it, but I didn't really definitely didn't agree with it, and didn't agree with sort of the reasons of why I sort of got told. But, that's happened, that's part of the parcel, and, I've definitely moved on and past that, that's for sure. But that's probably what took me so long to process it. I think I was 24 at that stage, was just to understand and learn how to deal with such a disappointment, because I had so many highs for a period of time. I probably didn't learn how to deal with failure at that age.
And was it then that you sparked the passion for coaching? Is this when you started your coaching career with Wynnum Manly?
It wasn't for a few more years after that. So after I lost my contract with Queensland, I sort of dabbled in real estate and industrial real estate for a few years.
Yep.
And after, I think, 3 years, I sort of realised that probably, it wasn't for me. And I sort of changed, and that's when I started all my coaching.
Yep.
a few years after that, and got into my teaching degree, which I'm looking to hopefully finish in a year's time.
Outstanding.
So so I'm really looking forward to that. It's, to be honest, if I said when I was at school or even 6-7 years ago, you're going to be doing uni and looking to become a teacher, I would have said you're absolutely kidding yourself. But I've done some pracs, and it's something that I really enjoy, and I'm thoroughly enjoying all the coaching and my coaching business that I do. And I love being around kids because you get a lot of energy and enjoyment out of them. And the best thing is you're trying to help them improve, whether it is in the classroom or in cricket. You get to see their development and enjoy their ride as well.
And
but I guess going back onto that point of losing that contract, it was a tough thing for me to deal with, but I sort of slowly sort of got over it and got into the real estate, and that sort of finished up. And since that coaching sort of side of stuff started, I sort of haven't sort of really looked back since then.
And you have another little run in the Queensland setup as well before injuries take their toll. What was it like getting back in and then having the injuries kind of put the brakes on again?
Yeah, it was. That was probably. I think still got a message and a screenshot of, because I actually missed the call to say that I was getting a contract or offering me a contract, and I got it sort of via text message to say, look, just give us a call back.
Yeah.
I think it might have been in late April, early May, and from that moment it was amazing, because even though it was still a dream of mine to get back, it wasn't my number one goal, to be honest.
Yeah.
My goal was just to enjoy playing cricket, because I went through a fair amount of time where I wasn't enjoying cricket. I didn't want to play. I was playing because I just knew that I was decent at cricket, so I'll just keep playing and hopefully I'll enjoy it again. And I had all my mates in cricket as well.
Yeah.
And I was coaching, so why not just keep playing? But I think I got all my passion back, and my results, sort of showed that. I was performing really well in club cricket and second 11.
Yeah.
And then I got that opportunity. But as you sort of mentioned on those injuries, I still know the date, July 16th, 2019.
Yeah.
I fell over den cutting at training, broke I got a distal radius sort of fracture in my right arm. And to be honest, from then I barely was able to bowl off my run up again, and I haven't really done it since, to be honest.
Wow.
It was probably one of the hardest seasons, the hardest sort of 5-6 months mentally. There was times because I sort of did my wrist, and as my wrist recovered and I was getting back to bowling, I got a stress fracture in my back. So as soon as you get a stress fracture, that's about 6, 7, 8 months out as a bowler. So that was my season done, and by sort of September, October, I think when I got my stress fracture, I pretty much knew what the news was going to be coming, because my season was over and on a 1-year contract. In the age of 29, 30, fast bowler who's had sort of 4 stress fractures and isn't cemented in any team, you know what's sort of coming. So it was probably the hardest time. As I said, I didn't really want to be at training. There was times, I was tearing up on the way to training, leaving training, holding back tears during training. But it was one thing that I definitely learned about myself. Again, was if you're in that state of mind, best thing is to take a step back. Don't try and force your way through it to recover or to get better. I probably should have taken a couple of weeks away. And because, mental health is such a massive thing, and I probably didn't really sort of take the time for myself. I was always thinking, no, I need to do this. I need to show that I'm keen to get another contract to show that I want to be here and I'm doing everything I can. I should have thought a bit more sort of about myself and what I guess the perception of was, especially that I hadn't been able to play a game for the whole season pretty much.
Yeah.
So it was definitely the hardest season, that's for sure, mentally. And it's pretty disappointing to think of sort of what sort of happened and sort of what I went through. But look, people go through a far lot worse. Unfortunately, I was lucky to get another opportunity after having sort of 6 or 7 years at an early age. So even though it didn't work out, I'm still thankful that I was able to have that second opportunity. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And it sounds like things are going well now. You're doing coaching, so you got your own coaching business. Is that right?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, it's pretty just the Alister McDermott Cricket Academy that I sort of run out of Brisbane and the Gold Coast up here, and just do a a bit of private stuff, a fast bowling sort of program as well, some cricket camps, and then just get involved in some school programs as well with a private school up here, Churchy, with a fellow Queenslander, Peter Drinnan, who played for Queensland, pumped me back, or I would say maybe early 2000s.
Yep.
I'll sort of help him out there, and Peter Clifford sort of does a little bit of work there as well. So, I'm really enjoying it. I love getting up, knowing that I'm going to be helping sort of young kids help develop their game. And I think the biggest thing that I try and focus on and the learnings that I've had in my career is about just enjoying the game. They're going to fail. They're going to fail a lot more than they succeed. And it might not sound like they're obviously probably turning people off cricket if you're going to fail more than you succeed. But it's those moments that succeed that you keep playing, or it's the moments where your teammates succeed or your team succeeds that makes you want to keep playing the game. That's for sure. If they can learn how to understand and control the emotions and how they feel with failing, and learn from it, then keep playing and enjoy the sport for what it is. I think there's a lot of life lessons in cricket, because in life you're going to get thrown a lot of curveballs, a lot of challenges, and you might sort of fail at things. But it's how you just sort of step up and walk out, I guess, pardon the pun, and walk out for your next innings or next challenge, next spell, and how you come back from that and keep learning is probably the biggest life lesson that you can get from cricket. And my best mates today are all in cricket. I think that's the biggest thing. The amazing thing about team sport, once you've played it for quite a while at any level, those friendships that you make, they're for life. And I might not see some of them for 2 or 3 years, but you end up seeing them, hang out for a couple of hours, and it's just like, you never left.
Yeah.
And that's the most enjoyable thing, that's for sure.
Oh, 100%. Now, you've been very generous with your time, Alistair, but I need to ask you one more question. This one very popular with our listeners. If Alistair McDermott's having a net and he can invite anyone down, and I'd say anyone down when they're in the peak of their condition as well, thinking here. So it could be cricketers, could be athletes, comedians, politicians, whoever you want. Who are your top 3 to have at the nets?
Oh, that's a very, very good question. Well, I guess growing up as a cricketer, I always enjoyed, and even still to this day, you see him rolling the arm over in the just doing commentary. Is definitely sort of Shane Warne, that's for sure.
Yeah.
No doubt he's probably still got it, and he's going to always have some good stories as well for you. Number 2, look, I do enjoy my golf. So it would have to be, go either Tiger Woods or a good Aussie, Adam Scott.
Yeah.
Something, I guess it's some golf that I've got into lately and have always enjoyed. Number 3, it's a tough one. I'm trying to steer away from cricketers.
Yeah.
I would have to say it probably would be another cricketer, to be honest. And I've always liked watching. I'm going to just throw it out there, is Shaun Pollock.
Yes.
Maybe because he's a fellow redhead as well. But that's a bowler who I grew up watching and idolising on sort of how he bowled. Never met him before, but hopefully he's a good fella to have down in the net.
Oh, well, if you're listening, Shaun Pollock, get in touch with Alister McDermott and get down to the nets. Love,
yeah, that would be nice.
love to see that happen. Well, thank you so much, Alister, for your time. You've been very generous with sharing some of your memories of your career and things that you've learnt throughout. Really appreciated having you on the Cricket Library podcast, and wish you all the best with your cricket academy and finishing off your uni degree. And thanks so much for being a part of the program.
No dramas. Thank you very much for having me. Apologies that I know it's been a bit back and forth over the last couple of months to trying to get me on and stuff. But look, no, I thoroughly appreciate and coming on and enjoyed it. And thank you very much for what you're doing. I think hopefully a lot of kids and even parents get to, I guess, take a couple of things away from whoever they might be listening to. It doesn't obviously necessarily have to be me, but hopefully they enjoy it and have some enjoyment out of it, and maybe they've got to take a little learning out of it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the reasons we're here, is to inspire people to love and play the game, and these stories certainly help to do that. Thanks so much, Alister McDermott.
No dramas. Thank you.
A massive thanks to Alister McDermott for joining us on the Cricket Library podcast. Really appreciated his openness and honesty about the highs and the lows. He experienced plenty of highs playing for Queensland and the Brisbane Heat, Australian under-19s, all that sort of stuff. But of course, the disappointments of losing a Queensland contract and having to think through his options in life. And certainly great to see him thriving and flourishing at the moment in his studies to become a teacher and his work as a cricket coach, the Alister McDermott Cricket Academy, and of course at Wynnum Manly Grade Cricket Club in Brisbane. Fantastic to hear that things are going so well for Alister now, and we thoroughly appreciate his time on the podcast today. And how good to have a redhead mentioned in the 3 net session selections. Shaun Pollock, welcome. I think that is the first redhead we've had nominated. Any other future guests, maybe consider Jason Flores or Andrew McDonald, or maybe even Alister McDermott himself. Maybe we could build up that network of red-headed cricketers getting a mention on the podcast. And if you did enjoy today, which I trust you did, please make sure you hit the subscribe button. If you're feeling extra generous, make sure you give us a rating and review on the iTunes store. That really does help spread the word and get it out there. The message that we're trying to share, which is stories that inspire a love of cricket. And Alister McDermott's story has certainly done that for me today. He's lit up that, relit and kept that flame burning within me, and hopefully the same for all of you. Have yourselves a great time until we meet again. We will be back again soon. This has been Matt Ellis for the Cricket Library podcast. Thanks so much for tuning in. It's bye for now.